Okay, let's get this back so that we can. Wait. This is getting to be weird. Okay. All right. So we're in our guest room tonight because somebody wanted to be in here playing Crossy Road on a different TV for some unknown reason, and we have Miss Athena joining us for reading.
Yeah, you're joining us.
So, let's see. You want to be over here?
Yeah, you good girl. Yes, my good girl.
Okay, so since we had a little bit of confusion of where we were going to be, we're just going to read this tonight because I didn't have time to find a separate Christian story. So, you start off with figgy pudding. Now, your meal is just fine. Let me see. Let me see. Oh, yeah, that's okay. It's just a little bit of your nail that came up. It's not even like actual. You're perfectly fine. I got the offending piece. You'll be fine now. I promise. Okay? We'll clip your nails when we're done. Okay? I know. You went from hating it to being obsessed with it. It's okay. So, you know the song Figgy Pudding? I think you do. Ugh. Been dreading singing this all night, but I'm gonna do it. Alright, Figgy Pudding. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Good tidings we bring to you and your kin. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Now bring us some figgy pudding. Now bring us some figgy pudding. Now bring us some figgy pudding and bring some out here. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. For we all like figgy pudding. For we all like figgy pudding. For we all like figgy pudding. So bring some out here. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And we won't go until we got some. We won't go until we've got some. We won't go until we've got some. So bring some out here. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. Okay. Ooh, this section ends with 12 Days of Christmas. So that's going to be a long day of singing. Now, we are into the Goodwill and Giving section. Alright? The first stockings. Oh, I like this story. It's good. We have to get this book, The Life and Adventures of Santa Claus. I think we should look and see if we can find that, because the excerpts that this book has sounds like a really fun book that we would enjoy reading. So this is The First Stockings, an extract from The Life and Adventures of Santa Claus by L. Frank Baum. This is part of a story telling how Santa Claus invented the first toys, and then, with the help of his reindeers, Flossie and Glossie, took them to the children's houses. When you remember that no child until Santa Claus began his travels had ever known the pleasure of possessing a toy, you will understand how joy crept into the homes of those who had been favored with a visit from the good man. They talked of him day by day in loving tones and were grateful for his kindly deeds. When another Christmas Eve drew near, there was a monster load of beautiful gifts for the children ready to be loaded upon the big sleigh. Claus filled 3 sacks to the brim and tucked every corner in the sleigh full of toys besides. Then, at twilight, the 10 reindeer appeared and Flossie introduced them all to Claus. They were Racer and Pacer, Reckless and Speckless, fearless and peerless, and ready and steady, who, with Flossie and Flossie, made up the 10 who have traversed the world these hundreds of years with their generous master. They were all very beautiful, with slender limbs, spreading antlers, velvety dark eyes, and smooth coats of fawn colors spotted with white. Put that leg down. Claus loved them at once, and has loved them ever since, for they are loyal friends, and have rendered him priceless service. The new harnesses fitted them nicely, and soon they were all fastened to the sleigh by twos, with Flossie and Flossie in the lead. The reindeer wore strings of sleigh bells, and were so delighted with the music they made that they kept prancing up and down to make the bells ring. Claus seated himself in the sleigh, drew a warm robe over his knees, and his fur cap over his ears, and cracked his whip as a signal to start instantly. The 10 reindeer leapt forward and were away just like the wind, while jolly Santa Claus laughed gleefully to see them run and shouted a song in his big, hearty voice. Ah, crap, another song. With a ho 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 and a ha 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 and a ho ho ha ha hee. Now away we go o'er the frozen snow, as merry as we can be. There are many joys in our load of toys, as many a child will know. We'll scatter them wide on our wild night ride o'er the crisp and sparkling snow. Silly boy. You're feeling goofy tonight, aren't you? Now, it was on this Christmas Eve that little Margot and her brother Dick and her cousins Ned and Sarah, who were visiting at Margot's house, came in from making a snowman. The children's clothes were damp, their mittens dripping, and their shoes and stockings wet through and through. They were not scolded, for Margot's mother knew the snow was melting, but they were sent to bed early so that their clothes might be hung over chairs to dry. The shoes were placed on the red tiles of the hearth, where the heat from the hot embers would strike them, and the stockings were carefully hung in a row by the chimney, directly over the fireplace. That was the reason Santa Claus noticed them when he came down the chimney that night, and all the household were fast asleep. He was in a tremendous hurry, and seeing the stockings all belonged to children, he quickly stuffed his toys into them and dashed up the chimney again, appearing on the roof so suddenly that the reindeer were astonished at his agility. I wish they would all hang up their stockings, he thought, as he drove to the next chimney. It would save me a lot of time, and I could then visit more children before daybreak. When Margot and Dick and Ned and Sarah jumped out of bed the next morning and ran downstairs to get their stockings from the fireplace, they were filled with delight to find the toys from Santa Claus inside them. In fact, I think they found more presents in their stockings than any other children in that city had received, for Santa Claus was in a hurry and did not stop to count the toys. The children told all their little friends about it, and of course every one of them decided to hang their own stockings by the fireplace the next Christmas Eve. On his next trip, Santa Claus found so many stockings hung up in anticipation of his visit that he could fill them in a jiffy and be away again in half the time required to find the children and place the toys by their bedside. The custom grew year after year and has always been a great help to Santa Claus. And with so many children to visit, he surely needs all the help we can give him. Oh, this one's sad. This is a sad story. The Little Match Girl, an story adapted from a story by Hans Christian Andersen. It was dreadfully cold. It was snowing fast, and it was almost dark as evening came on. In the cold and the darkness went a poor little girl, walking slowly along the street barefoot. When she left home, she had shoes on, but they were much too big for her feet, and the poor little girl lost them in running across the street. When she looked for them, one was not to be found, and a boy grabbed the other and ran away with it. So the little girl went on with her bare feet that were blue with cold, and an old apron that she wore were bundles of matches, which she sold to passers-by to make a few pennies each day. And she carried a bundle also in her hand. No one had bought so much as a bundle all day, and no one had given her even a penny. Poor little girl! Shivering with cold and hunger, she crept along, a perfect picture of misery. Snowflakes fell on her long blonde hair, which hung down in curls. Lights gleamed in every window. I am not biting your thumb. I don't know where that thumb's been. In every window. And there came to her the delicious smell of roast goose, for it was New Year's Eve. In a corner formed by two houses, she sat down shivering. She drew her little feet under her, but still she grew colder and colder. She did not dare go home until she had sold some matches. If she went home with no money, her father would certainly beat her. And, besides, it was cold enough at home, for they had only the roof above them, and though the largest holes had been blocked with straw and rags, there were many holes left through which the cold wind whistled. Her hands were nearly frozen with cold. She couldn't help thinking a single match might do her good if she might only draw it from the bundle, rub it against the wall, and warm her fingers by it. So at last she drew one out, and struck it. It blazed and burned. It gave out a warm, bright flame, like a little candle, as she held one hand and then another over it. A wonderful little light it was. It really seemed to the little girl as if she sat before a great iron stove with polished brass feet. So blessedly it burned that the little girl stretched out her feet to warm them also. How comfortable she was! I am not biting your hands. Hey, hey, you. Yeah, boo boo what? I don't want to bite your hand. You don't want to bite your hand, silly little boy. Hey, hey, you. Yeah, hey, you. Don't you mock me. Don't you mock me. Trouble. Where were we? So blessedly it burned that the little girl stretched out her feet to warm them also. How comfortable she was. But then the flame went out, the stove vanished, and nothing remained but the little burned match in her hand. She rubbed another match against the wall. It burned brightly, and where the light fell upon the wall, it became transparent like a veil, so that she could see through it into the room. A clean white cloth was spread upon the table, on which was a beautiful china dinner service. A roast goose stuffed with apples lay upon a platter. That sounds delicious. Sending in wisps of steam and smelling delicious. And then, what was still more wonderful, the goose jumped from the dish with knife and fork still in its breast and waddled along the floor straight for the little girl. But then the little match went out, and nothing was left but the thick, damp wall. She lit another match, and now she was under a most beautiful Christmas tree, larger and far more pretty than the one she had seen through the glass doors at the rich merchants'. Hundreds of wax candles were burning on the green branches, and bright baubles, such as she had seen in shop windows, twinkled down upon her. The child stretched out her hands to them. Then the match went out. Still the lights of the Christmas tree rose higher and higher. She saw them now as stars in heaven, and one of them fell, forming a long trail of fire. Now someone is dying, she murmured, or murmured the little girl softly, for her grandmother, the only person who had loved her, who was now dead, had told her that whenever a star falls, a soul flies up to God. She struck yet another match against the wall, and again it was light, and in the brightness there appeared before her the little girl's dear old grandmother, bright and radiant, yet kind and sweet, and happy as she had never looked to her. "Oh, grandmother," cried the child, "take me with you. I know you will go away when the match burns out. You too will vanish like the warm stove, the splendid New Year's feast, the beautiful Christmas tree." And in terror that her grandmother should disappear, she rubbed the whole bundle of matches against the wall. And the matches burned with such a brilliant light that it became brighter than midday. Her grandmother had never looked so beautiful. She took the little girl in her arms, and both flew together, joyously, gloriously, mounting higher and higher, far above the earth. And for them there was neither hunger, nor cold, nor care. They were with God. But in the corner at the dawn of day sat the little girl, leaning against the wall, stiff and cold, with the matches, one bundle of which was burned. She wanted to warm herself, poor little thing, people said. No one imagined what wonderful visions she had had, or how glorious she had gone with her grandmother to enter upon the joys of a new year. Little Women's Christmas Breakfast. An extract from Little Women. Joe, Meg, Amy, and Beth have been told their mother can't afford any Christmas presents this year, apart from $1 each in a book. They've decided to buy presents for their mother with their money: handkerchiefs, slippers, gloves, and a bottle of cologne. Their father is away at war. Joe was the first to wake in the gray dawn of Christmas morning. No stockings hung at the fireplace, and for a moment she felt disappointed. Then she remembered her mother's promise and, slipping her hand under her pillow, drew out a little crimson-covered book. She woke Meg with a "Merry Christmas" and bade her see what was under her pillow. A green-covered book appeared. Presently Beth and Amy woke to rummage and find their little books also. One dove-colored, the other blue, and all sat looking at and talking about them, while the east grew rosy and with the coming day. "I'm glad mine is blue," said Amy, and then the rooms were very still while the pages softly turned, and the winter sunshine crept in to touch the bright heads with a Christmas greeting. "Where is Mother?" asked Meg as she and Joe ran down to thank her for their gifts half an hour later. "Goodness only knows. Some poor person came a begging, and your ma went straight off to see what was needed." "There never was such a woman for giving away," replied Hannah, who had lived with the family since Meg was born, and was considered by them all more as a friend than a servant. "She'll be back soon, I think, so have everything ready," said Meg, looking over the presents, which were collected in a basket and kept under the sofa, ready to be produced at the proper time. "Why, where is Amy's bottle of cologne?" she added, as the little flask did not appear. "She took it out a minute ago and went off with it to put a ribbon on it, or some such notion," replied Joe, while she danced about the room. "How nice my handkerchiefs look, don't they? Hannah washed and ironed them for me, but I marked them all myself," said Beth, looking proudly at the somewhat uneven letters that had cost her such labor. "Bless the child! She's gone and put Mother on them instead of M. March." "How funny!" cried Joe, taking one up. "Isn't that right? I thought it was better to do it so because Meg's initials are M.M., and I don't want anyone to use them but Marmee," said Beth, looking troubled. "It's all right, dear, and a very pretty idea. Quite sensible, too, for no one can ever mistake them now. It will please her very much, I know," said Meg, with a frown for Joe and a smile for Beth. "There's Mother! Hide the basket, quick!" cried Joe, as a door slammed and steps sounded in the hall. Amy came in hastily and saw her sisters all waiting for her. "Where have you been, and what are you hiding behind you?" asked Meg. "Don't laugh at me, Joe. I didn't think anyone should know till the time came. I only meant to change the little bottle of cologne for a big one, and I gave all my money to get it." As she spoke, Amy showed the handsome flask that replaced the cheap one, and looked so earnest that Meg hugged her on the spot, while Beth ran to the window and picked her finest rose to ornament the stately bottle. Another bang on the street door sent the little basket under the sofa, and the girls to the table, eager for breakfast. "Merry Christmas, Marmee! Many of them! Thank you for our books," they all cried in chorus. "Merry Christmas, little daughters! I want to say one word before we sit down. Not far away from here lies a poor woman with a newborn baby. 6 children are huddled into one bed to keep from freezing, and they have no fire. There is nothing to eat over there, and the oldest boy came to tell me they were suffering hunger and cold. My girls, will you give them your breakfast as a Christmas present? They are all hungry, having waited nearly an hour. They were all hungry, having waited nearly an hour. For a minute no one spoke, but only a minute, for Joe exclaimed, "I'm so glad you came before we began." "May I go and help carry the things to the poor little children?" asked Beth eagerly. "I shall take the cream and the muffins," added Amy, heroically giving up the article she liked most. Meg was covering the buckwheats and piling the bread into one big plate. "I thought you'd do it," said Mrs. March, smiling as if satisfied. "You shall all come and help me, and when we come back we will have bread and milk for breakfast, and make it up at dinner time." They were soon ready, and the little procession set out. A poor, bare, miserable room it was, with broken windows, no fire, ragged bedclothes, a sick mother, wailing baby, and a group of pale, hungry children cuddled under one old quilt trying to keep warm. How the big eyes stared and the blue lips smiled as the girls went in. "It is good angels come to us," said the poor woman, crying for joy. Funny angels in hoods and mittens, said Joe, and set them to laughing. In a few minutes it really did seem as if kind spirits had been at work there. Hannah, who had carried wood, made a fire and stopped up the broken window panes. Mrs. March gave the mother tea and gruel, and comforted her with promises of help, while she dressed the little baby as tenderly as if it had been her own. The girls set the food on the table, sat the children round the fire, and fed them like so many hungry birds, laughing, talking, and trying to understand the funny broken English. That was a very happy breakfast, though they didn't get any of it. And when they went away, leaving comfort behind, I think there was not in all the city 4 merrier people than the hungry little girls who gave away their breakfast and contented themselves with only bread and milk on Christmas morning. That's loving our neighbor better than ourselves, and I like it, said Meg. The girls set out their presents while their mother was upstairs collecting clothes for the poor family. Not a very splendid show, but there was a great deal of love done up in the few little bundles and the tall vase of red roses, white chrysanthemums, and trailing vines, which stood in the middle, gave quite an elegant air to the table. She's coming. Strike up, Beth. Open the door, Amy. 3 cheers for Marmay, cried Joe, prancing about while Meg went to conduct Mother to the seat of honor. Mrs. March was both surprised and touched, and smiled as she examined her presents and read the little notes that accompanied them. The slippers went on at once. A new handkerchief was slipped into her pocket. Well scented with Amy's cologne, the rose was fastened to her bosom, and the nice gloves were pronounced a perfect fit. So we have the Snow Queen, the fir tree. Oh no, we've got a couple more stories in here. Okay. Right, let's see here. So I want to make sure that we finish this on a good 1, 2, 3. Okay, so yeah. So there's 5 more stories in here. We're almost done with it though, buddy. What do you think about that, huh? Mm-hmm. All right. You want to say goodbye or good night? We gotta get you in your own bed. Oh my goodness. Oh, what is this? What is happening? Okay. Here we go. Oh boy. Here we go. Oh. You want to say good night? You say good night? Do you want to say good night? Come here. Athena, come. Up. Good girl. Yeah, good girl. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. This little boy. You want to do this little boy? Are you going to be his best friend? Yeah? Good. You looking at that camera? No, I don't want to bite your fingers. I don't want to bite your fingers. Oh, my glasses. All right, guys. Well, we will see you all tomorrow. Hopefully I won't be made to bite fingers. I don't know what that obsession is. Sometimes he does it. He's really adamant about it. Very weird. Very odd. All right. Can you say good night? Can I have a paw? Paw? Yeah? Yeah, that's still a new one. We're still working on that one. All right. Good night, everyone. We'll see you tomorrow.